Intro sentence. 1984 by George Orwell is a dystopian novel that explores the dangers of totalitarianism and the loss of individual freedom in a futuristic society. The Big Idea. The novel presents a chilling vision of a society controlled by a totalitarian regime, where citizens are constantly monitored, manipulated, and stripped of their basic human rights. For summary. 1984, a dystopian novel by George Orwell, presents a harrowing vision of a totalitarian regime that exercises extreme control over every aspect of life. The story is set in Airstrip 1, formerly known as Great Britain, where the party, led by the elusive Big Brother, maintains power through pervasive surveillance, manipulation of truth, and ruthless oppression. The protagonist, Winston Smith, is a low-ranking member of the party who works at the Ministry of Truth, where he alters historical records to fit the party's ever-changing narrative. Secretly disillusioned by the oppressive regime, Winston begins to question the party's authority and yearns for personal freedom and truth. Winston's rebellion takes shape through his illicit love affair with Julia, a co-worker who shares his disdain for the party. Together, they seek moments of intimacy and authenticity, defying the oppressive norms imposed by their society. However, their quest for rebellion is fraught with danger, as the party's surveillance is omnipresent and they are ultimately betrayed. The Thought Police capture Winston and Julia, leading to their brutal re-education in the Ministry of Love, where Winston is subjected to psychological torture until he ultimately succumbs to the party's ideology. The novel culminates in a chilling conclusion, as Winston, stripped of his individuality and spirit, is released back into society, having betrayed Julia and come to love Big Brother. 1984 serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of totalitarianism, the manipulation of truth, and the fragility of personal freedom. Through Winston's tragic journey, Orwell illustrates the devastating effects of oppressive regimes on the human spirit and the importance of critical thought and individual autonomy in the face of overwhelming authority. Detailed summary. The narrative of 1984 begins with Winston Smith, who works at the Ministry of Truth, where he alters historical records to conform to the party's propaganda. The oppressive atmosphere of the party is established, highlighting the omnipresence of Big Brother and the Thought Police. Winston's internal struggle with the party's dogma intensifies as he secretly begins to write a diary, expressing his rebellious thoughts against the regime. His encounter with Julia, a fellow party member, ignites a personal rebellion against the oppressive system, leading to a secretive love affair that symbolizes their yearning for freedom. As Winston and Julia navigate their relationship, they seek out moments of rebellion and authenticity in a world dominated by fear and conformity. They eventually connect with O'Brien, a high-ranking party member who appears to share their dissenting views. However, their hope is shattered when it is revealed that O'Brien is a loyal servant of the party, and they are arrested by the Thought Police. The brutal psychological torture that follows in the Ministry of Love breaks Winston's spirit, forcing him to confront his deepest fears and betray Julia. The novel concludes with Winston's complete subjugation to the party's ideology. He emerges from his re-education a changed man, having lost his sense of self and his capacity for independent thought. Ultimately, Winston learns to love Big Brother, signifying his total defeat and the triumph of the oppressive regime. Through this bleak ending, Orwell warns of the dangers of totalitarianism and the loss of individual autonomy. Setting and context. 1984 is set in a dystopian future where the world is divided into three superstates: Oceania, Eurasia, and Eastasia. The narrative primarily takes place in Airstrip 1, a province of Oceania, characterized by perpetual war, government surveillance, and a distorted reality enforced by the party. The cultural and historical context reflects post-World War II sentiments, particularly the rise of totalitarian regimes in Europe and the pervasive influence of propaganda. Orwell's experiences with authoritarianism and his observations of the Soviet Union's practices inform the novel's critique of oppressive governance, illustrating the potential dangers of unchecked political power and the erosion of truth. Character sketches. Winston Smith, the protagonist, is a disillusioned party member who longs for truth and freedom in a society dominated by surveillance and oppression. His core motivation is to reclaim his individuality and resist the totalitarian regime. Julia, his love interest, embodies rebellion and sensuality, driven by a desire for personal autonomy and connection. O'Brien, the antagonist, presents himself as an ally to Winston and Julia, but ultimately represents the party's cruel and manipulative nature, betraying their trust and enforcing the regime's control through psychological torture. Data and Evidence Snapshot. 1984 presents a chilling narrative supported by Orwell's observations of totalitarian practices in the Soviet Union and Nazi Germany. Key figures, such as Big Brother, symbolize oppressive authority, while the thought police illustrate the extreme measures taken to suppress dissent. Landmark studies on propaganda, such as Edward Bernay's work, provide context for the manipulation of truth depicted in the novel. Orwell's expert insights into the psychology of control and societal compliance underscore the importance of critical thinking in safeguarding individual freedoms. This data reinforces the novel's warning against the dangers of unchecked political power and the fragility of truth in a repressive society. Key takeaways. Surveillance and control. Orwell warns about the dangers of constant surveillance and government control, highlighting how these can lead to the suppression of dissent and individuality. Loss of freedom. The novel illustrates how a totalitarian regime can strip away personal freedoms and manipulate reality to maintain power and control over its citizens. Resistance and hope. Despite the oppressive regime depicted in the novel, Orwell emphasizes the importance of resistance and hope in the face of adversity. Apply this now. Reflect on the ways in which surveillance and control mechanisms are present in today's society, and consider how you can protect your own privacy and individuality in an increasingly monitored world. Quotes to remember. A powerful quote capturing the book's essence. An insightful line that resonates with the book's theme. A thought-provoking statement from the text. About the author. George Orwell is a notable author known for their significant contributions to literature and writing. Their other works include: list other books by the author if available,